Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Netflix. It is time for another update, and finally this stock seems to have begun the next move down, seems to be on the way to completing the correction we have been waiting for a considerable amount of time already. As for what it has already done, it was insufficient to track really any reliable pattern that would allow extensions directly to higher prices, as within this structure, we were between the support zones for various different interpretations. So yes, the preference was to still extend to at the very least $60 before even considering a more substantial bottom to have a higher likelihood. Now, before we actually head into the smaller timeframe details, let's understand the context a bit. There isn't actually that much going on in the smaller timeframe. We have a very clear picture we expect to see, but depending on how it develops, we could be looking at one scenario from a large time frame perspective or the other. So in the case of this stock, we actually do not have the nicest impulse we could be tracking in such a structure, but we are considering it a possibility nonetheless. I would consider it possible for a series of 1-2 setups to have developed in this initial structure, and then from this low I could track this as a potential wave 3 top, in which case we could be looking for the large wave 4 correction in white, in which scenario we have to expect to reach at least $40 before forming a bottom, before actually starting the next move up to new all-time highs. So even if the prospect for this chart is actually quite bullish, it can see this downtrend extend through even the next few years, to be honest. So this is more of a long-term opportunity, because once we have a bottom in, we are back on track to extending to new all-time highs. And now the question is, when will we have the bottom in? Well, I cannot simply answer that. I cannot simply tell you that on this date it will bottom. I cannot guarantee such a thing. But I will be able to determine based on the internal structure in this area whether we would likely see even further lows, or if we start seeing some signs of a reversal, some signs of a bottom, that could be an interesting moment to consider a position. But as it stands right now, I believe looking for continued downside is the highest probability path forward. And in the case of this structure, I am focused most specifically on this wave C down, where the ideal target is the 100% extension of the wave A, which sits at around $61, right? Pretty much in line with the first level of support in yellow. We don't actually need to bounce off of the 100% extension. We actually don't need to stop there. And to be honest, the wave C doesn't actually even need to get there. So to be clear, this is the closest path to a bottom. This idea of an ABC structure, I believe, is the first structure that could be marking a more substantial bottom. Because other patterns are a possibility, I could probably track this even as a leading diagonal only within a wave A, but in that scenario I would need then a wave B and a wave C still to complete a corrective pattern. I could also expect for this move down to only be, even as an ABC structure, the first leg of a larger correction, the first leg of a larger A, B, C pattern, right? So it is possible to see much further downside, but if we are to follow this idea, and if the stock shows some signs of a bottom once it is complete, we can start looking for some opportunities here. So in the smaller time frame, I am looking at this wave C to, of course, build a 5-wave pattern. And given the internal structure I see here, I actually believe we could be looking at a series of 1-2 setups, where right now the wave 3 would be in full formation, where in this wave 3 I of course expect to build an impulse, and this is specifically what we will focus on until we either complete the structure or we get evidence that something else would be going on. So at the very least, I would expect to form one additional wave 4 and a wave 5 to potentially complete only an internal wave 3. I actually believe it quite possible, maybe even a bit more likely, to still see extensions within this as a wave 3. But if we actually break the levels of resistance for such an idea, it wouldn't be any strong indication that the path down wouldn't be in full force, that we wouldn't even be able to still track this idea of an impulse actually. So the main resistance levels I am focused on for this structure are here between $79.40 up to $83. And only with the sustained break above the 50% retracement do we really get a stronger indication that a more substantial bottom would be in at least within this wave down, that I would have to track a different pattern. So for all intents and purposes, right now I believe there is still plenty of downside to be prepared for. If this wave 3 extends even further, which again remains a possibility, I do consider some structural support we have here around $75. But then I would also have to adjust the resistance area for the large degree wave 4, the one that actually matters here, that tracks resistance up to $83, with the supposed bottom of this as a wave 3. So, as a quick recap, Netflix, actually a quite interesting opportunity, but we are far too early in my opinion. I believe we could start looking for a more substantial bottom, especially once we complete this wave sit down, which ideally takes us to at least $60 in my opinion. Then if we get the minimum expectations fulfilled for this idea of a potential 1-2 setup, which could lead to a massive move up, we get, let's say, some signs of a reversal, some signs of strength. We maybe trend sideways for a little bit, but maybe the momentum is picking up and we see some spikes to higher prices. We see the trend shift upwards. We can start looking for an opportunity. But again, for now, we actually still have to be patient. Even in the case of this wave C in yellow, we have to be patient. I actually believe we could very easily trend in this structure throughout the rest of the year, maybe forming a more substantial bottom towards the end of 2026, maybe early 2027, but this is just a rough idea of what we can really expect, as there is a lot of missing data from the structure that we have at hand. I frankly do not even know at this point if we maybe need to build a larger wave B in this yellow structure, but I do know that as long as we do not get the break above the 50% retracement internally at $83, I do not even have to worry about that. And for now, we will stop here. If you want even more from me, even more opportunities, even ones that are closer in terms of time frame, you can check out the Patreon, and these are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you enjoyed the content and want to support it directly, check out the channel membership, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.